Welcome to the 7 Pillar Podcast with Nick Ahmed and Mike Ahmed. We are brothers and former pro athletes who are now on mission to help athletes and coaches grow their mindset, expand their leadership, and elevate their performance.
Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. The truth is that transforming your life begins with transforming your mind. This podcast is built for athletes, coaches, competitors, and leaders who refuse to settle for average, who are ready to live with purpose, build a legacy, and defy the odds. Here, we talk about what it actually takes to live and perform on a higher plane, building your foundation on God and His truth, developing elite standards and eternal perspectives, and becoming fearless in the face of adversity. Because no one hands you a life worth living. You have to build it yourself. And it starts right now.
All right. Welcome to episode number 2 of the 7 Pillar Podcast. Mike, you ready?
Let's do it, bro. Let's dive in.
All right. So review quick. First episode was awesome. Talked a lot about foundation, talked a lot about identity. Let's review real quick. We talked about Matthew chapter 7 quite a bit, building your life on a firm foundation. So a lot of us as athletes and coaches and competitors, we tend to build our lives on the foundation of sand, things of this world, things that can't hold us up and give us that firm stability we need. So reviewing Jesus's words here, anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds a house on solid rock. Though the rain comes down in torrents and the floodwaters rise and beat against that house, it won't collapse because it is built on bedrock. But anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rain and floods come and the winds beat against that house, it will collapse with a mighty crash. So again, the reminder here is that the storms are going to come to all of us, right? Injuries, slumps, difficulties, family relational issues off the field, poor performance, all of it's going to come to every single one of us no matter what. So the question and challenge is, what type of life are you building? What type of identity are you building? Are you building one on a firm and solid foundation, or are you going to build one on sand, the things that are going to wash away when times get hard?
I think a good thing to note with this too is, and when something that I like to talk to my clients about is, it's not just adversity, which is obviously probably the biggest one, the thing that we face most often. But I like to say too, if, in times of temptation, when we're tempted to do things that we know we shouldn't, and then even in times of success, right? Like a lot of times we have this success, we end up drifting away from the things that get us there and help us create success in the first place. So if we don't have that foundation, or if our foundation is built on sand, even in times of success, like we can, have those things that kind of, snowball and get us drifting in a direction where we don't want to go. So it's adversity, it's failure, it's the tough times, but it's honestly even the good times as well. So
Yeah, that's a good point.
foundation is going to carry us through everything.
Yeah, that's a good point. I appreciate you saying that there, because success can definitely derail us and pull us off course just as much as failure. It can make us arrogant, make us complacent. It can make us full of ourselves and prideful. It can just break down our walls and our ability to stay focused on what we know is important. So that's a good point to be made right there. So whether you're going through a good stretch, a bad stretch, anything in between, it's important to evaluate the foundation for your life that you're building and make sure it's a real solid one. And speaking of identity too, Mike, I love the 3 S's that you gave to summarize identity. Can you summarize for us real quick what those 3 S's are?
Yeah, for sure. So the 3 S's are self-worth, your story, and your standards. And when we kind of understand how those 3 pieces build into our identity, it's going to help us have that firm foundation that we want. So, number 1 was self-worth. Where is our self-worth coming from? Is it coming from our performance? Is it coming from us, how we do on the field, the box score, our stat line? Is it coming from what other people say of us? Obviously, as believers, like our self-worth is not coming from anything that we do, but our worth is given to us and we work from that, right? Not to that. So I think that's a huge part of it. Our story, this is kind of one of my favorite things to talk about is our story, right? Like we have so much freedom and power here, empowerment to, really say what our story is, right? Like we have the chance to say, whatever happened to me in the past is going to hold me back, etc. Or we can say, hey, this is an opportunity, whether it was good or bad, to help launch me into the future. we can decide how our past, we can decide what our past meant to us. We can all just also decide where our future is going. And
Yeah.
then the standards too. You have something to add to that, Nick?
Yeah, it's really good. It just made me think of the London Marathon recently. I know you and I talked about this off the episode a little bit, but recently, if you guys haven't heard that, the London Marathon 2026, two men broke the world record for the marathon time. So 26.2 miles, the record, no one had ever broke the 2 hour mark. So two guys in the same marathon, they broke the world record. The ironic part is that one of them had to lose. So one guy set a world record. He broke a long-standing world record in the marathon, one of the most iconic, races in the world, and he lost. Right? He lost the race. He didn't win. So what does this do to your identity if you don't have that firm and solid foundation? You absolutely shattered a world record, did something that no one else has ever done before, but you didn't win the race. You came in second. You lost. So, I don't know where that guy is at in his identity and his walk and his foundation for his life and his faith, but I can imagine it could be really hard and difficult to swallow if you did something so good, so great, but you came up short, right? That's when comparison comes in. Is like, man, this guy's actually better than me. I'm not good enough. All these lies, this negativity starts to filter into the mind. So it just reminds us of how important it is to not build an identity that's based on the performance, based on things outside of our control, based on comparison of what other people are doing, and just to run our own race, be the best we can be in our lane, and just show up every day with confidence, with purpose, on mission to do the best we can, and use our gifts to impact the world.
I think that actually really dovetails nicely into the third S here, which is standards, right? Like if we are basing our identity, our standards off of our performance, and like you said, comparing it to somebody else, right? Then we're living outside the standards that we have set for ourselves. So when we're talking about standards, again, this is standards that we've created for ourselves, but they're also standards that are not outcome based standards, right? Like they are things that are totally under our control, but we can say, hey, this is what I'm competing against. This is what I'm going for. It's how did I show up today with my nutrition, with my recovery, with my mindset, with my relationships, etc. And again, when you are attacking the standards that you set for yourself and nothing outside of yourself, I mean, that's going to give you a really good base and a really good foundation to work from, right? We're not going to be chasing other people. We're going to be chasing our best self, which I think is going to give us a lot of freedom, right?
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, this definitely transitions into the topic for today. We're going to be talking about the 5 keys to an elite mindset. We're going to touch on number one and really dive heavily into the first key. But if our standards to have an elite mindset, what does that mean? What does that take for us to show up every day to create that elite mindset? So I think it's important that we stop and really understand what this is about. So, Mike, you want to introduce the 5 keys to an elite mindset, and then we can dive into the first one?
Yeah, for sure. Our we talk so much about elite mindset, mental toughness, et cetera, like all of that. But I think at the end of the day, if we don't have a framework to go by, some rules for our lives, like to live by, um, we can be born with a certain amount of mental toughness, but like at the end of the day, we want to be growing and building something in our lives. So this framework I think is huge. It's helped me. It's helped other guys that I've worked with. And again, the 5 keys are: number one is aware, number two is anchored, number three is proactive, number four is persistent, and number five is present. So if we can go through all these 5 keys and we can kind of build ourselves up inside of each of those keys, we're going to have an elite mindset. We're going to be able to take on the challenge. We're going to be able to take on temptation, success, all these things that are going to get thrown at us, and we're going to be able to run our own race, right, so to speak, with the London Marathon. So I'll just give you a quick overview of what each of the pillars are, and then we're going to dive into. Sorry, each of the keys are, and then we're going to dive into awareness a lot today. So number one, being aware, is who are we now, and who do we want to become? Anchored, right? Like we talk about this, we want to have a solid and true foundation that's going to give us purpose, direction, clarity in our lives. Number three, proactive. We're going to cast vision and we're going to plan action items. So that means what's our schedule look like? What's our habits look like? What do our routines look like? Number four, persistent. We want to have consistency, like I said, through adversity, through temptation, and through success. It's going to help us develop discipline in all of those areas. And the last one I think is left off a lot is being present, right? We want to live with gratitude, peace, and joy, no matter what's going on around us. So again, aware, anchored, proactive, persistent, and present. If we can work through this framework, we're going to end up with an elite mindset.
Quick break from today's episode. So here's the truth. We've done the research, and only 5.1% of elite athletes and coaches are actually training their mind on a daily basis. That is exactly why we built our 7-pillar mindset training app. To join our 7-pillar community and start training your mind, leadership, and performance today, subscribe to our one-of-a-kind training app at app.7pillar.co/memberships. You'll be joining athletes, coaches, and leaders seeking to become the best versions of themselves, both on and off the field. For 10% off your first year, use code PODCAST10 at checkout. All right, now back to today's episode.
Yeah, awesome. I love those, Mike. We talked last episode about Mike having a lot of just really cool letter analogies for us here. So double A, triple P, just to remember those right there. Double A, triple P, aware and anchored, double A, proactive, persistent, and present. Okay, so Mike, you want to dive into these couple scripture passages and then we can get going to break
Yeah.
down what awareness truly is?
Yeah. Yeah. So the question we have to ask ourselves, right, is like, why is awareness important? Start over there. So the question we have to ask ourselves is, why is awareness important, right? Like, if we don't have a certain amount of self-awareness, we're not going to be able to improve things that we don't recognize, right? This scripture, Proverbs 14:8, is awesome. It says, the prudent understand where they are going, but fools deceive themselves, right? So like in order for us to be wise, we have to have some idea of the track that we're on, of the lane that we're going down. And if we don't, it's going to be really hard for us to make any changes that we want to make. Um, I think one thing that I talk a lot about too is when I go and talk with teams or individuals and we say, hey, like, what are your guys' values? Like, what are most important things in your life? And, they'll say a list of 10, 15 different things. Usually those kind of come up a lot. And then I'll ask, okay, how many of you guys are living those out on a daily basis? And a lot of them really aren't. And so, like, when we're becoming aware, we're kind of like starting to recognize the inconsistency between, hey, I value this, but we're actually not living it out. Right. So the first step is awareness. If you don't know where you're going, if you don't really know how you're living right now, it's going to be tough to make those changes that you want.
Yeah, I think it's
One,
worth noting here too, you talk about that gap, right? That gap
yeah,
between who we want to become and who we are currently.
yep,
And there's no shame in that. There's no judgment. There's no, feeling less than because of that. We all have those areas. I have plenty of them. Mike has them. We all have those areas in our life where we're striving to become something, a better version of ourselves in that area, but we haven't quite got there. We haven't quite achieved that yet. We never will fully arrive anyways, but just wanted to make the point there that there's always going to be a gap, right? And the gap's not a bad thing. It just shows us like, hey, there's room for improvement. There's room for growth here. And I can step into that and embrace that every day.
yeah. And we start thinking about that too. We start thinking about where we want to go, and it kind of like shows us what the gap is like. And do we need to, how much do we need to close that gap? A lot of times we don't even know that the gap exists. We don't even know what lane that we want to go down. So when we start thinking about these things, and we'll say it again today, we said it last podcast, is we got to start asking good questions, right? And that's number one, right? Ask good questions. Whether it's about your performance on the field, whether it's about your habits, whether it's about your mindset, identity, obviously. But start asking these questions. Diving into Galatians here, chapter 6, verse 4. First part of this says, pay careful attention to your own work, for then you will get the satisfaction of a job well done. Right? We have to be aware of what our work is producing on a daily basis. And again, this goes for us as athletes, and it goes for us off the field. Off the field stuff is just as important, if not more important, than the work that we put in on the field. So pay careful attention, understand where you're going, start to ask good questions. The greater self awareness that we have, it's going to build our ability to respond with intentionality. And I think a lot of times when we don't have that, we end up responding with reactivity, with stress. And, those are really ways that we don't want to respond to certain situations, whether it's a bad game, whether it's an argument with our teammates or, our family members. Right, we're going to have greater intentionality with what we want to do and how we want to respond. So
Yeah, I think the last line of that verse is really important to note too. It says, and you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else. So for us, when we get stuck in this loop of negativity and a poor and not elite mindset, oftentimes we're comparing ourselves to others. We're feeling less than because we look around the room, we look around the field, we look around at the competition. We say, "Man, I'm not quite as good as that guy. I didn't have a good enough performance or season that that guy did." So when we pay careful attention to our own work, it allows us the freedom to just put all that other stuff to the side and put comparison away, just say, you know what, I've got enough in front of me that I need to focus on here. I'm going to run my own race. I'm going to get the satisfaction of a job well done every single day by focusing on me and the things in front of me rather than worrying about what other people are doing.
Yeah, absolutely. That goes back to we talk about standards, right? It's like, what are your standards? If you have your standards and you know what your standards should be, you don't have to worry about comparing yourself to anybody else. So Nick, I want to ask you a question here. Like, when do you start to become aware as an athlete? What are some things that you need to do, or some things, some key steps that you need to reach to have that awareness?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it started personally when I got drafted. I went to UConn, played college baseball at University of Connecticut, had 3 pretty good years there, played in the Cape Cod League, got drafted in the second round by the Atlanta Braves after, playing college baseball, hitting 300 every year, whatever it was. I thought I was doing pretty good. And as soon as I got to professional baseball, I realized the bar had got raised quite a bit higher. And I looked around, not talking about comparison in a negative way here, but I looked around, I just started to become aware like, okay, this is my swing, this is my ability. It's not necessarily matching up and leveling up to the best hitters that I'm seeing around me, specifically talking about hitting for me. And I realized that my swing was suboptimal. I was missing, over the top of sinkers, and I was missing just pitches that I should be hitting normally, but the stuff from the pitchers had gotten better. The location, the command, the stuff, all this stuff had gotten better, and it exposed some weaknesses in my game. So I had to look at myself in the mirror and ask some really hard and difficult questions of, hey, the swing and the approach and everything I did in college, it gave me the success there. Was it good enough to translate to this next level? And the answer quickly became no. I had to take a look at myself really hard and say I have to make some changes here and just be really self-aware that I needed to grow and I needed to improve as a hitter. I needed to make my swing more able to produce at that next level. So sometimes people get stuck, right? They have success at a certain level. They think they get to the next level, that same success, that same swing, that same approach, whatever it is going to carry over, but it often doesn't, right? We have to continue to build. We have to continue to improve and grow every single day. And it starts with being aware. It starts with saying, hey, how am I right now? Where do I want to go? And what are the steps I need to take to get there? So after I got drafted, that was the first moment for me. It was like, man, I'm really not where I need to be and I need to level things up.
I think it's a good point because when we talk about self-aware, at least for me, I can definitely dive in a little bit too much on the mindset side, which is obviously important. But like you're hitting right now on, we need to be self-aware on the physical side as well, right? Like we need to know about our swing, our movements, etc. So in all aspects, right? If we're developing this self-awareness of who we are as a player, how our mind works, how we relate to other people, right? We're going to get better in every single category of life, which is huge. Um, and one thing that I like to talk about too, and this especially comes up in cage work with me and my guys, is um, that self awareness translating over into becoming your own best coach. Like that self awareness is kind of the start of that, right? And that's how I talk to guys in the cage. Like as soon as you start to have this level of self awareness of what works, what doesn't work, maybe where you need to go, you can start coaching yourself, which is my goal as a skills coach. My goal is to kind of give you the reins, empower you, and say, hey, I want you to be your own best coach. Like you got to figure out, I'm not going to be with you all the time, right? I'm going to be with you maybe 1 to 2% of the time where you're actually working. So I want to give you the reins. I want to equip you to be your own best coach and figure out, hey, like where do I need to go with this? What's working? What's not working? What are some cues that have worked in the past? So as a coach, and I think a lot of times coaches are getting the mindset of telling their athletes what to do, which obviously we're here to guide and support them, but we also need to give them the reins and empower them to say, hey, this is what works for me. And once you do that, like, okay, now now the growth is exponential, right? It's not just me telling the athlete what to do, but now they're aware of what's going on right now. and where they need to go, and maybe some drills or some mindset things that they need to do to help get them where they want to go. Um,
Yeah.
have
It's
you had
funny
any
you
stories
mentioned
recently about that?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. I was actually working with a client recently, a current Major League Baseball player, and he was going through that. He was just kind of butting heads with the coaches, the analytics department. They were feeding him all this information, and not that he didn't trust it, but it just wasn't quite translating for him. The work that he was doing was making his back a little sore. It wasn't translating the results on the field. So I just listened to him for a little while, let him talk, and then I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to ask a question right here. It's like, what does your gut tell you to do? And immediately he just went boom, 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 boom. He listed off 2 or 3 things right away. I was like, okay, they were in New York recently playing the Yankees. And I said, okay, you have rain today in the forecast. It looks like BP is going to get canceled. You're going to go to the cage an hour before the game. You're going to get your swings. You're going to get loose for the game. You get 25 swings today. What are you going to do in the cage? And immediately, same thing. He just, boom, he went and spit out the answer right away. He's going to set up the slider facing a right-handed pitcher that day. He's going to put a right-handed slider on the machine, working toward his back foot. And he's just going to work to try to get inside that thing and drive it consistently to the right center gap. And sure enough, it doesn't always happen this way, but sure enough, he works like that with a lot of purpose, a lot of intention. He trusts his gut. He becomes his own best coach. He steps into the game that night. He gets a right-handed slider moving toward his back foot and bang, hits a home run to right field. And it's just like, man, that's confirmation that just says, you know what? You know what you need to do. You take the information, you take the coaching, you take all the lessons, all the data, and you learn to personalize it. You learn to say, okay, this is what I need. I'm going to take this, this, and this. And the rest of this stuff is not what I need. I'm going to throw that stuff out and I'm going to work and really focus on all the things that I need today, become my own best coach, and just take that ownership in your work each and every day. It's not that you're not being coachable and not using the coaching. It's the exact opposite. You're taking the coaching and then you're learning how to apply it to yourself because you're the only one that goes with you to the batter's box. You're the only one that steps up to the free throw line with you. You're the only one that goes under center when you're the quarterback. We take all that coaching, we have to learn to apply it and think the right way through it and just become super self-aware and allow that to drive our work, our preparation, and then ultimately our performance on the field.
Yeah, dude. I think the ownership aspect is huge. I mean, at the end of the day, like it's our career, right? It's not our coach's career. It's not anybody else's career. So you got to take ownership of what you're doing. That goes for the cage work. That goes for pregame, during the game, etc. Like you have to own what you're doing. If you're not comfortable with whatever you're doing, you got to figure out why and what the adjustments are. But that's an awesome story, right? Like
Yeah.
trust your gut. You know, I think that comes with too a decent amount of work and reps, right? So you guys have to put in the work too. It's not just like it's going to come to you like that. And you know, the coaches that are around you are there to help you and guide you. But you know, like we said, at the end of the day, you have to own your career. You have to own what you're doing. And that's going to set you up for success in the long run. In the long
Yeah.
run.
What
Uh,
about for you, Mike? When did you start to really become aware and start to become your own best coach?
yeah, I mean, I think I really started to understand this concept when I was pretty far along in my career. Obviously, like I was self aware with some things that I needed to work on. Um, but like really valuing becoming my own coach didn't show up later, and it's probably too late in my career. You know, I was playing in this was high A back in I want to say 2016, and you know I had some okay mediocre seasons at best in the prior couple years. And kind of same thing, 2016, starting off pretty slow. You know, like my best hit balls were like one hoppers hit sharply at the shortstop. So I was like, something needs to change. And thankfully, we had a roving hitting coach come in for us, and you know, I got to work with him pretty extensively that season. We were in Rancho, so we were pretty close to LA. You know, he was bopping around big league team and some other affiliates. So I got to work with him pretty extensively, and you know, honestly, helped me out a ton. It was him. There was actually two guys that were out there, but they both helped me a lot. You know, I went from a guy that was around 260 with I think the previous year I hit 5 homers and over 450 at bats to hitting about 20 and like 320 homers and 360 at bats that year. And it was really mostly due to some mechanical changes that these guys helped me with. Now, fast forward a couple years, this was in the off season. I was coming off an oblique injury, and actually, we both went out to California to work with these guys again. Um, and they were starting to work with me and telling me some things that were kind of outside what they were telling me before, kind of like going on a totally different direction and, not really working with my strengths that I had. Um, and some warning lights were going off in my mind. It's like, kind of, they were telling me I couldn't do this certain thing that I've been doing for the last year and a half of my career, something that had actually helped me have success. And so some warning lights were going off, and I was like, all right, well, let me trust these guys. They helped me before. They're going to help me again. Um, Again, my gut was saying like, this is not the right thing to do. Um, and obviously not to put the blame on the coaches, but I really bought into it. And, I had a hard time the next year and a half trying to really recreate or create a good feel for myself in the box. And I think going down kind of a very different lane that I was in, something that was kind of away from my strengths, actually hurt me in the long run. And again, like, I take ownership. It was my career. I should have known better and been able to filter the information that they were telling me. But after that, it was just really hard time getting the feel that I wanted to get in the box again. So, for me as a coach, that was a great learning experience, not so much as a player, but for me as a coach, right, is saying to, like, okay,
Yeah.
what are these guys, what are the guys that I'm working with? What are their strengths? How can I help them out? If something's like really not clicking, it doesn't make sense to them. They're like, fighting against it. Okay, let's find a different way to solve the problem that we have, rather than force it down their throats. But it was really illuminating for me as a coach. And so trying to work with athletes now and saying, hey, like, again, my goal for you is for you to kind of take the reins here, take ownership. I'm going to be here to guide you, but I'm not here to force anything down your throat or tell you exactly what you have to do. So for me as a player, like, not a great experience, but turning around as a coach, right, definitely helped me to understand what, how to work with guys.
Yeah, it's awesome that you're taking that experience now and using it to become a
Yeah.
better coach because of it. It makes me think of a couple different things. First, most coaches are right in what they see, right? They're good at what they do. They see certain things, but the implementation or the how behind to get to that next step, that's up to us, right? They can make suggestions, but us as athletes and even us as coaches in our lives and decisions that we make off the field, we have to take that information and then we have to use what I call the filter analogy. You mentioned the word filter there, it made me think of it. So we're convicted in our self over here, right? We have our core convictions, the things that we know and hold to be true about ourselves, about our identity, our mindset, talking about baseball or your sport, your swing, the mechanics that you have for your sport, right? We need to put up a filter here, right? In the middle, if you're watching guys on YouTube, right, there's a filter in the middle. On the other side is all the coaching, it's all the data, it's all the information, it's all the things that coaches and people share and try to help you with. And it's our job to put up the filter when they say something to us and not allow it to the other side to infiltrate our convictions yet. We have to be the ones that analyze it and say, is this right for me? And if it is, then we take it through the filter to the other side, allow that to be part of our core convictions, allow that to help us grow and get better. But if it's not, if our gut's telling us like you were feeling in that situation, if our gut's saying no, we got to be respectful about it and say, hey, thanks for the information. I'll give that a try and just move on, right? We need to know that that's not right for us and we kick that to the side. That doesn't mean we shut that coach out. That doesn't mean there's no valuable information coming from this side. It just means that, hey, that's not the right piece for me. And I'm going to figure out how to implement what he's saying, right? Because what he's saying usually has a lot of substance. We just need to learn how to translate it into the right way for us individually.
Yeah, that's great. I think speaking to the coaches here too, one way that I like to think about it is like, I'm trying to co-create this plan for the player that I'm working with. Whether it's a swing, whether it's defensively, whether it's mindset stuff, like, we're doing this together. And if the player is going to feel like they have a good stake in creating this plan, like, they're going to own it and they're going to be more convicted in it in the end. And I
Yeah.
think that starts with, as coaches, right? Like, asking the players questions. Say, hey, what do you think is going to work here? Why do you think that? And if we can kind of continue to ask questions, right? We're talking about self awareness today. So as coaches, we have to try to help our athletes create that self awareness, understand why something's going wrong, understand why something is working, right? Continue to ask questions and say, hey, like, what do you think is the best plan here? Why do you think that? And again, as coaches, if we can kind of co-create these plans with our players, right, they're going to own it more. They're going to be more convicted in what they're doing. they're going to be more likely to trust you at the end of the day, right? Rather than you telling them
Yeah.
exactly what to do, which for coaches, that's a huge one, right? If we can't break that trust barrier to start with, right, the walls are going up, we're not getting in there at all. So, I think that's a really good approach. It's something that's worked for me a lot with my clients in the cages and with the mindset side as well. So I think that's super
Yeah.
important.
I love that, the way you're speaking to the coach right now. And for me, as I've transitioned away from being an athlete to being a coach now, coaching professional athletes with their mindset and leadership and different things, and then coaching youth athletics with my two boys. The thing that jumps out to me the most is that I don't always know the right thing in the right way. I may have done it a certain way myself and had success that way, but individually speaking, right? Everyone's body moves different. We have, motor preferences and different body types and different things that allow us to move and just function differently. So just because I did something a certain way when I was an athlete doesn't mean that's the right way. It doesn't mean that's the only way. So I have to be careful in how I speak to athletes and say, hey, here's a suggestion, here's an opportunity, here's a way of thinking about it. But it's not a black and white picture. There's nothing in sport that's black and white. So we got to be careful as coaches to be self aware of how we speak to our athletes and think that, hey, just because this was done a certain way in the past, this was done a certain way in my career, it doesn't have to be that way for the athletes who coach. So just becoming self-aware as a coach to just say, hey, I've got some information here, but I don't have everything, right? I'm going to work hard to present the things that I know and help my athletes the best way possible. But just have enough humility to say, you know what, I don't know everything. Here's what I did. Here's my experience. And I think this could help. Or if not, let's try to repackage it in a different way to make sure that it does help.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I think the question that we can ask is how are we going to best solve the problem that's in front of us? Right? Like
Yeah.
we can speak to the things that helped us and that have helped other people and that help a lot of people, but that may not work for you specifically. So again, as coaches, it's like, hey, this could work. Let's try this. If it doesn't, let's find a way to solve the problem and make sure that you're right, whether it's, physically or mentally.
Yeah. As a coach, Mike, when you see an athlete that's, let's just say, going down a path of negativity and self doubt, and you hear the self talk getting really, really poor, what do you do in that space to help that athlete become, first of all, become aware of that? And then number two, to help them get out of that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of times, like the first step as a coach is like being able to, and I already mentioned this, but like being able to create that trust in the first place. Because if you don't have that trust, they're not going to want to talk to you. They're not going to open up even if they do. So developing that trust is foundational with what you're doing. When I'm seeing guys kind of go down the negativity rabbit hole, that you can go down in a few different ways. Um, but generally, we'll just talk and say, hey, like, what are you thinking about right now? Why? Like, what's the issue going on? I'll see it a lot, especially with younger guys, like trying to get to the collegiate level and like feeling like they don't have time. It's like, hey, like we are not going to push the panic button. We're going to figure out what's going on. We're going to break it down and go step by step. We're going to solve the problem instead of panicking. And I think a lot of times, you know, especially younger guys, but even professional athletes too, is like they see something going wrong, panic button because again, everything's maybe feels like it's going to be ripped away. So number one, it's what? It's an identity problem, right? Like
Yeah,
at
exactly.
the at the end of the day, like they're not sure of themselves. They're not sure of where they're going. They're comparing their journey to somebody else's journey, which is huge. And a lot of times, hey, let's slow down. Let's back it up. Let's really attack what's going on and figure out whether it's your swing, your mindset, whatever. Well, let's just ask questions and solve the problem. Um, and again, number one is developing that trust with your athlete. Number two is being able to speak to maybe what type of negativity they're experiencing, whether it's their swing's not in a good spot, whether they're not dealing with um, you know in-game approach mental skills very well, whether it's they feel like they're not going to have enough time, whether they feel like they're comparing themselves or they are comparing themselves too much to other athletes. Um, so again, my role is to ask questions and help them, figure out why they're thinking in a certain way, and then let's instead of diving into the fear aspect, like let's speak truth to the lies that we're experiencing, right? Those self-limiting beliefs, and let's try to find some truth that we can tell ourselves that are going to help right the ship and help us live in that identity that we want to have.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
that's really good. That's really good. So part of what I'm hearing is that you're helping shift perspective. So oftentimes we get stuck as athletes and coaches and competitors and leaders and people, we get stuck with a misaligned perspective. And I think for me, that's where the frustration comes in. And more times than not, when we start to say things out loud, when we complain, we have that negative self talk, we're initially unaware of what's going on around us. So learning how to slow down, learning how to say, okay, where's my perspective right now? Where am I placing my thoughts? Where is this negativity coming from? Learning to unpack that and create a different type of perspective through that, and then just help them problem solve that situation. So thinking about perspective, right? This is just more, right? This podcast is not just about performance, although we do want to help you guys become the best performers possible as athletes, as coaches. We want to help you on the field become the best performers you can be. But we want to help you even deeper off the field as well, to develop the right type of perspectives to live your entire life from, to become a great husband, a great father, a great mother, a great wife, whatever it is down the road that you're going to do, to own a great business, to lead people well, to make great impact in the world away from the sport. We want to help you guys with all of that as well. So thinking about being aware off the field, I think it's really important to just understand the direction of our thoughts, right? Our thoughts have so much to do with the direction of our lives, and we need to stop, right? We need to say, hey, if my thoughts are going this way, where is that going to lead me? It's going to lead me to do certain actions and then create certain habits. And those habits are going to produce outcomes ultimately. So it's important. A pastor that we both love listening to, Craig Groeschel, has an amazing quote. I want to read it here. He says, your mind is always moving in the direction of your strongest thoughts. So again, your mind is always moving in the direction of your strongest thoughts. We all have all kinds of thoughts all throughout the day. There's tens of thousands of thoughts that fire across our synapses each and every day. It doesn't mean every single thought has to be a positive, constructive, well thought out, good perspective based thought. But it just means the strongest thoughts, the ones we think the most, the ones that are most prevalent in our minds, those ones are going to dictate the course of our life. So learning to ask ourselves the questions and think about what we're thinking is super important. So I just think that we just really need to slow down and think about each and every day when we wake up, where are our strongest thoughts, where are our thoughts going each and every day, and what is that going to do for our actions, our habits, and our outcomes, not just in our sport, but our life.
I think that's a great point. And I want to piggyback on that a little bit in that, we're not always going to be able to control every thought that comes into our mind, right? Like some are going to be negative. Hopefully, most will be positive and pushing us forward to where we want to go. But the cool thing is we have the ability to respond to those thoughts, right? We don't have to let them dictate our habits and behaviors like you're talking about, right? Like, so we may have this one-off thought that's negative, that's not true, that's kind of like leading us into our false identity. But we can say, hey, like I choose to reject that thought, right? Like I don't have to listen to that thought, and I'm going to choose to speak life and truth to that thought. Um, again, like so when you have those negative thoughts, like don't put too much pressure on yourself and like thinking negative again. It's just we have the ability to say, hey, this is a thought in a direction where I don't want to go. And then off of that, say, hey, let me affirm the direction that I do want to go and the thoughts that I do want to have and the thoughts that are true and are going to help me progress in a way that I want to. Right.
Yeah,
So
being aware too and thinking about the thoughts that we have to understand that there's influences to our thoughts. And the inputs that we put into our mind each and every day, the things that we watch, things that we read, things that we listen to, the people we surround ourselves with, those have an amazing impact, a crazy impact on the thoughts that we have. So speaking of being aware, right? This is some data that Mike dug up here. The average 16 to 24-year-old spends 3+ hours a day on social media. 3+ hours a day on social media alone. Okay, guys, we did the math, right? If we calculate how many hours per year, divide that by 24 hours in a day, that accounts to 45.6 days per year, 24-hour day cycles of being on social media over the course of a 365-day, 1-year period. That is absolutely mind-blowing to me. So there's obviously some good tools through social media. There's some amazing things you can learn and watch and put good inputs into your mind, but the vast majority of it is not good. It's comparison, it's negativity. It's difficult for us to just live in that type of world where we're sucked into a screen, we're living in a false reality, we're living in someone else's world, we're comparing the highlight reels of everyone else to the worst days that we're experiencing, And then we expect that we're going to go out and have a great mindset and have a healthy, mind and mental health all day long. There's no chance, right? We're setting ourselves up for failure. So I think it's important that, we mentioned Romans 12:2 last time as well. Do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. We have a choice every day. Are we going to transform our mindset, or are we going to conform to the patterns of this world? We have to choose which one it's going to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think a big thing too with it's on top of the huge comparison trap that we see in social media is just the pure distraction of it, right?
Yeah.
Like the amount of time that we can be distracted away from our goals and the things that we want to accomplish is massive. We talk about 45 and a half full 24-hour periods. Like if we spread that out into 12-hour periods, right?
That's
Now we're
scary.
talking close to 90 days. It's too much, right? And I've been there, you've been there. We do things in our lives to mitigate that, obviously. Um, but if you guys are spending that much time on social media or consuming entertainment, music, shows, etc., things that are not like either speaking to your values or helping you get closer to your goals, right? Like we're just living in distraction and comparison. And that's not where we want to live, obviously. And like you said, it's just going to drain your mindset. There's no chance that you're going to be living in an elite mindset if you're constantly being bombarded by, like you said, uh, highlight reels of other people, the best moments of other people's lives. And then you look at your own life and say, hey, like, why is my life not as good as this? And then you just add to the distraction on top of that. So we have to be aware of how much time we're spending with these things like social media, um, music that we don't want to listen to, entertainment, and importantly, our friend group as well, right? Like, what kind of influence is that having on our lives? Um, and again, on top of that is we're creating the self awareness of who we are now, but we also need to have the self awareness of where we want to go, and then like what do the habits and routines look like that I need to build that are going to help me get there.
Yeah. So as we wrap up, I think that's a good segue. So at the end of every episode, we want to make things practical. We want to give you guys a takeaway. We want to challenge you guys to not just be hearers of the word, but to go out and be doers of the word as well. So, Mike, I'm going to ask you a question. What's one thing that you became self aware of recently? And what's one practical thing that you can do to control your inputs, or you already are doing to control your inputs because of it?
Yeah, this is super practical. This is something that I've been doing for a while now, but just like anybody else, like I'll have the temptation to go on social media, Instagram, just like anyone else would. So something super practical. At the end of the day, I charge my phone outside my bedroom, usually in the kitchen. And, on the off chance where I'm still using my phone, I have it on my nightstand for whatever reason, like I'm going to be noticing myself just automatically being drawn to it. So we got to set up our environment in a way that's going to help us stick to the things that we want to stick to, right? Like if you're going to sleep and your phone is right next to your nightstand, well, you're probably going to look at it last thing at night, and you're probably going to look at it first thing in the morning. So it's not all about willpower. It's like how can we set up our environment to help us be the type of person that we want to be. So that's one thing, simple thing, but it's very very practical. How about you, Nick? Same. What about you?
Yeah, it's good. I'm glad you touched on that. The environment is super important. I noticed myself, I didn't really use social media a whole lot, growing up and when I was younger. But as I got to the big leagues and, endorsements and different things started happening, I got an Instagram account and started to use it frequently. But I just didn't love it. I didn't love how it made me feel. I didn't love the time I spent on it. I didn't love the distractions that came with it. And especially as we transition now into seven pillar and the business operation side of things, we do use it, right? We use social media to connect with customers and we do it to market and do things out there like that. So it's part of our business and it's a tool. But what I've done intentionally, like shaping my environment, like you're talking about right there, is I don't have social media on my phone, right? I don't have it on my phone. I don't have it on my device that's with me all the time. I keep it on my iPad and my iPad stays in my office, right? So if I need to use social media for work, right, it's on the iPad, it stays in the office, right? And whenever work's done, I leave the office, the iPad stays in here, right? And then I go about the rest of my day. I take my phone with me, and my phone doesn't have that temptation on there. So strategically structuring my environment, the device that goes with me in my pocket, right? I can call, text, do whatever I need to do on it, but I don't want to have that temptation. I don't want to have that ability to go to something and distract and not be present with my wife, with my kids, with whatever I'm doing the rest of the day. So I think it's really important. And the challenge, I guess, we'll give you guys right now is to shape your environment in a way that's going to help control your inputs to help you chase and become the best version of yourself. So become self aware, ask yourself the question, what are my inputs doing to me right now? What inputs do I need to change? And then how can I strategically structure my environment to help create those better inputs and create a life that's worth living?
Awesome, bro.
Thank you for tuning in with us today. If this episode brought you value, please share it with someone in your circle who needs to hear this message. Be sure to follow the show so you never miss an episode, and don't forget to leave a rating and review. Every share, follow, and review helps us reach more people and make a greater impact. Because at the end of the day, this is about more than content. It's about growth, purpose, and stepping fully into who you were created to be.